Good Friday morning, friends. Welcome back for another episode of the Finding God in the Dark podcast. My name is Don.
And my name is Jonathan.
Today we are talking about the 2025 film, Is This Thing On? It stars, as you can see behind Jonathan there, it's Jason Arnett, right?
Will Arnett.
Will Arnett. Will Arnett and
Laura Dern.
yeah, Laura Dern. I was going to say Laura Linney. That's a completely different actress. Uh, I had the first name.
Yeah.
Um, Before we even jump in, I wanted to say something that I said in our text conversation about this film. I'll make a quick comparison between what this film does and what film we reviewed a few weeks back, If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You did. And
Yeah.
that is, it is not at all what you expect it is.
No.
If you watch the trailer or you read the blurb, the summary of it, you're going to get the idea that this is a film about a guy trying to make his way in life as a stand-up comic.
Yeah.
Um, and so you think you're going to get a lot of the stand-up comedy and that sort of thing and the camaraderie between him and the other comics. And
Yeah.
that's not really what this film is.
No.
It's a romantic comedy.
Yeah.
Um, I, I, I almost said raunchy, but it's not really raunch. I mean, things like
There are moments, but there's
there are
not.
moments, but things like The Hangover are a
Yeah.
whole lot more raunchy than this
Oh, yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Um, but it really is about more of his relationship with his wife, and they're in the process of a divorce, and
Yeah.
how rather than going to couples counseling, they kind of work out their issues with each other by doing things separate.
Yeah.
He takes on this
Stand-up
stand-up
comedian.
comedy
Yeah.
thing, going to open mic nights,
Yeah.
and she goes back into coaching volleyball.
Yeah.
And it's I mean it's a cute film. I don't hate it. It's
No.
just not what I expected it to be. So
Yeah.
where do you want to start on it, John?
Um, I don't know. I knew that it had a relationship element to it, and I have been pushing. If the folks that watch don't know, I am divorced, so I've been pushing myself to, I usually avoid relationship movies, and so I've been pushing myself to
Right.
actually engage with them. So that was part of the reason I picked this. I also am very curious about Bradley Cooper because he wrote and directed it. And I feel like as a director, he's all over the map. He doesn't really have I think he's trying to figure out who he wants to be, maybe. Like, I feel like his movies are really all over the board. So I was just kind of curious. But I don't know. I think,
I have a question though.
yeah,
Um, I mean, you knew there was a relationship angle to it, but
yeah.
did you know that it was this kind of, you know, divorce and marital counseling and therapy kind of story?
I had a sense just because there's a scene in the trailer where he talks about how I was never unhappy in the marriage. I was just unhappy in the marriage, I was never unhappy in the with the marriage. I was unhappy in the
In
marriage,
the marriage, yeah.
and so I assumed that there was a element there. But yeah, I think the interesting part of this is there's like two movies in this movie that's kind of not well woven together. To be honest, they
Hmm.
kind of hang together, but they're not woven well because you really could go down a very different movie where he's actually trying to become a good stand-up comedian and kind of the ups and downs of the
Right.
and you really get none
And
of
even though
that.
his act really is
Yeah.
like working out his relationship
Yeah.
stuff,
Yes.
on a mic.
Yeah. And what's interesting is like it had him tell sometimes jokes in front of a crowd, but the crowds never react. There's no taunting, there's no like pushback, there's none of that kind of stuff
Right.
that is part of kind of becoming a stand-up comedian. He's at a very famous stand-up comedian place in New York City. I mean, it's a really well-known place. And so you're just like it's interesting because it actually is like the stand-up comedy becomes kind of the pivot points to move into another aspect of the movie. It
Right.
kind of like encapsulates where he is in his relationship and in his mood right now. And I don't know. I would have liked to seen a movie that kind of explored someone trying to become a stand-up comedian. I would have been kind of interested in that.
I think that's
Um,
been done. I'm trying to remember the name of the film, but might have
yeah,
been Stand Up or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah. But
But I wondered now,
yeah,
since you brought it up, and at the risk
yeah.
of turning the podcast into a therapy session, which I don't think anyone would have any interest in, but um, how did I mean, how did you process that? I mean, you just process it as, from a distance, it's a film, or did it do anything like
Um,
personally for
there
you?
were there were a couple notes that just having experienced the whole pain of divorce that like I like the fact that they had a moment where the kids just start crying and they kind of are struggling with it all and not really understanding it because I do feel like the kids are the real victims in divorce and oftentimes we um, cover over that reality by just focusing on the parents and talking about well the parents are happier or the and what I liked about this movie is at least it gave us a few notes where you saw the kids struggling with this because kids really do struggle with this. It is a radical change. You go from seeing your kids every day to seeing them on weekends or seeing them 3 or 4 times a week, but that's all that happens. You go from spending vacations with your kids to going on vacations by yourself or going on vacation or going on vacations with just the kids and you don't have another adult to help you with and all these weird dimensions of it. They didn't delve into that because really the movie is about them figuring out that they're supposed to be together, and so that was a different note, of course. But yeah, I like the fact that at least I think they had two scenes where the kids are clearly kind of struggling with what's going on. There's one moment where one of the kids starts crying in the car. There's another moment where one of the kids asks, is dad going to be okay? Because he's all alone. And the fact that they had those in there, at least I appreciated that they, because a lot of movies and TV shows today kind of make you want to feel like divorce is no big deal. And I feel like for most people that have gone through it, it is a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah,
Even if you now, like, I can't say I have, but I was an adult when my parents divorced.
yeah,
And so, I was in the middle of that, and the whole
yeah,
of the four kids in my family, I'm the oldest. The three of the four of us were already 18 or older when my
yeah,
parents divorced. But then there was the whole battle of, custody over my youngest brother, and
yeah,
and who's on whose side. And it's like,
yeah,
yeah, I've been through it to that extent, and
yeah,
and I was never much at handling conflict to begin with, so I didn't process that really well. But no, I think what's this film does, and to its detriment,
yeah.
is that it really is kind of two halves of a movie,
Yeah.
but two halves of two different movies stuck together.
Yeah, I really got that sense, and I thought it was interesting. It goes with what we talked about last week with Soul, this idea that the arts and to some degree sports can kind of help you find who you are.
Right.
Um, and I do think that's an interesting dimension of recognizing the American tendency to emphasize and overemphasize individualism and how do you recognize and come to the realization that you can be fulfilled as an individual and still be part of a community and still be part of a family and still be, like I think we have a bad tendency sometimes to believe that you have to be an individual and then you have to be a family or then you have to be a part of a community, and really life's about figuring out how to balance all of those and run and connect all of those dimensions together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, as far as themes go, I mean, obviously the relationship divorce thing is,
Yeah, a big
very,
theme of it. Yeah,
very prominent here. Um, I think they really do the dealing with change, dealing with loss thing through the kids. And again, I don't know if they do that as well as they could.
They could have done more of that. I think that's much more of a dimension, especially if you have young kids. I think that's going to be a part of how. So you got one scene where the Laura Dern character Tess is crying in the shower. She goes to her separated husband's apartment, needs to take a shower. She takes a shower and sees the kids' toothbrushes and cries over them. This idea of like they have separate lives, they have, and those elements are there, but this movie wanted to make sure those were part of the story, but they didn't want to kind of drill down on them.
Yeah.
And that's just a choice. I get that. And some of the choice
It,
is
it, it almost
because,
feels, but I had to say, it almost feels like that they put that in there just to say we recognize that that happens, but we don't want to deal with it. And,
yeah, I
and
mean,
you know,
yeah, obviously the Bradley Cooper wanted to talk about getting this couple back together. And so the dwelling on kind of the pain that's caused by separation is something he wanted to acknowledge. I know he's gone through it. I don't know if he was married, but he has a child with somebody he's not married to. So I'm guessing they had some separation issues.
probably,
Um,
yeah.
and he wants to acknowledge it, which I appreciate that he at least acknowledged it, but he didn't really drill down on it. He just kind of left it there.
Yeah.
Um, for him, I think it was much more about can't think of Alex. I really feel like it was about this idea of how Alex and Tess find themselves. And there was a ham-handed moment, but also I think was interesting the picture aspect. So
The
at the
volleyball
very
picture.
end of the movie, yeah,
Yeah.
um, the uh, the Alex character decides to get a big picture of his wife when she was playing college or maybe Olympics,
I think it was college, yeah.
yeah, college volleyball, and he has her basically spiking the ball, but it's from behind. And he
Hmm.
put it up, and the kids really liked it. He put it up in his apartment, and he shows it to her, and he thinks it's going to be this moment where he's like, I still want you in my life. I still, and she interestingly points out that's not who I am anymore. You have a
Right.
picture up and are celebrating a person that no longer exists. Why don't you have a picture up of me with the kids? Or why don't you have a picture up of me and you with the kids? And it was really an interesting moment and an interesting way to reflect on this idea that a lot of times when we are in relationships, a lot of times we are in love with people that no longer exist.
Mm.
That we don't allow ourselves to love the person that's in front of us. We love the person who we think should be, or we love the person we wish the person would be, or we love the person they used to be, but we don't actually love the person in front of us. And it was a really good point. You could argue it was a little ham handed, but it was a really good point, I think.
I wonder if there wasn't a little bit of at least from Alex's point of view, sort of a trophy wife thing too,
Yeah.
hey, look at this is the mother of my children and she used to do
Yeah.
this,
Yes.
like
Well,
you hear
yeah.
sometimes guys talk about, marrying a gymnast, well, because
Yeah.
of
And
she's a
even,
gymnast,
yeah, even Tess even brings that up where she goes, um, she basically says, "Yeah, when I stopped, could no longer play, you changed."
Right.
It was almost like he, a huge part of him loved her because of her athletic ability, and once her athletic ability didn't exist anymore, he struggled to figure out a way to love her, which I thought was interesting. And then, of course, the movie ends with he took a picture of her earlier in the movie when he gets a van, and the movie ends with him. He's framed that picture of her as she's mad at him for buying this van, but he has the picture up of her. And I thought it was interesting, and I do think it is a problem in relationships. It's not marriage, but with our kids, with our parents, we oftentimes love the person that used to be or the person we wish they would be, but we
Mhm.
don't actually take the time to love the person that exists right now. Yeah,
Right. I mean, you can love someone's potential, but that's not your relationship, right?
yeah.
Um, that, okay. What else? Uh,
I did also.
there was this whole sort of story angle with
Yeah,
another couple and their divorce
yeah.
that I thought was interesting
Yes, I did too.
because like this couple was privately going to Alex and Tess,
Yeah,
because they want to they want to divorce the other one, and yet Alex and Tess, who were divorced or separated at the time,
separate
were secretly getting back together,
together.
secretly
Yeah,
meeting and hooking up, and
yeah.
it was
Well, and
an
yeah,
interesting.
again, I like that dimension in some regards too, because I can just speak for myself. I mean, outside of certain things, if someone came to me and said that the person they were with was abusing them or something like that, that would be a whole different discussion. But for most people that would, if they were come to me and ask my opinion about getting divorced, I basically go, is there any way that you can work it out? Especially if you have kids. I'd be like, is there any
Right.
way you can work it out? Is there any way that is there any kind of thing? I would basically go like, try everything you possibly can
Yeah.
because this isn't a good path. Like, this is not a path I'd recommend.
It's funny. I'm sure you've had opportunity to do some marital counseling as well.
Yeah,
I always tell if a couple comes to me, they want to talk about what's going on in their relationships, their marriage. I always tell them, look, I will sit with you a maximum of 3 times.
yeah. I do the same.
And then I'm going to refer you to somebody else. I mean,
Yes.
I think we can make some progress in 3 meetings,
Yeah.
and if things aren't terrible, you could probably do well.
Yeah. Yeah.
But more often than not, the issues are deeper than my skills. I'm not a professional counselor. I will refer them to someone who is, and not my wife, because that's a conflict of interest. But,
Yes.
uh,
Yeah.
you know, it's it's interesting to me in that you start watching this film and you see all of these underlying tensions and all of this conflict that's going on in their lives, and kind of my first thought, knowing what my wife does, knowing that I've been to therapy,
Yeah.
it was like, why are they not seeing a professional counselor
Yeah.
instead
Yeah.
of, kind of putting on a good face for the kids and
Yeah.
going to some party where they, sneak away with a marijuana cookie and get stoned on the train and get separated and
Yeah.
like, and then this is where he ends up in the club
Yeah.
do an open mic night because he didn't want to pay the cover charge.
Yes.
I mean, there were some funny things about this film. I will give it that, but um, I don't know. My first thought was where is the relationship, this adult relationship, not making the connection to say, hey, if we really value what's happening here, we need to get some professional intervention.
Yeah.
I don't
I
know.
I do think one criticism I would lay at this movie is it seems to present this idea that if we get healthy and happy on our own, we can make any relationship work. And it
Yeah,
doesn't
I
work
mean,
that way.
that doesn't.
I mean,
It's not right.
it really helps if you are centered and you are healthy. That
Sure.
absolutely helps. But you still have to work through the relationship. You're still going to have to navigate the relationship dynamics, and that's something you can't do on your own. You just can't.
You look at it this way. I mean, if a couple's been married, let's say with this couple, okay, they've been married 10 years or more, right? They've got
And
kids that
they were
age.
married over 20. Yeah.
Okay, 20 years.
Yeah.
So you're not fixing 20 years of damage in, a few weeks.
Yeah.
It's going
And
to take some investment of time and energy. Um,
and again, like Alex was clearly unhappy, and he was unhappy with his life, and him finding an outlet, a creative outlet to not be as unhappy in his life would definitely help his marriage. But they
sure.
still are going to have to navigate. I guess how I would like to how I would have liked it to end is them setting down and counseling.
I could, that would probably have been a more satisfactory end. Yes. I,
Because because to me at least, they didn't really address their underlying issues.
right.
He recognized that he was unhappy, but he wasn't unhappy in the marriage, and that's great. Um, but and she kind of found something outside of the kids and her marriage to kind of connect with in
Hmm.
in volleyball, and that's wonderful. But they still have this unhealthy dynamic about not talking well and not communicating well about their own needs. And that's not going to be solved just because they both have the realizations of their own lives. They're
Right.
going to have to work through how they communicate and work on wanting to do it better.
Yeah. I for one would recommend a good Christian counselor, but I'm biased.
Really?
I love this you put down as a theme is happiness the meaning of life, and that really talks to what you just said,
Yeah,
right? Okay, he finds happiness in doing this stand up, and everything's great.
yeah,
It, is it though?
yeah.
Because
Oh, yeah. Part of the reason I did that is I'm doing a sermon series. I start next week. I'm on vacation this week, but next week I start a sermon series on the Sabbath. I've decided that throughout the year, like maybe 3 or 4 times every year, I'm going to pick a spiritual discipline and then do a deep dive on a sermon series to kind of help my folks get connected with a spiritual discipline. And so I thought I'd start with Sabbath, in part because I'm also going to take a sabbatical. I thought that'd be a good way to explain it, right?
hmm
And so I have been reading stuff, and one of the things that I came across was in the West, we have really been shaped by Aristotle's thinking about the meaning of life. And in the end, he argued that if you ask people questions like, why are you doing this? And you keep asking them why, ultimately they'll get down to happiness. And what
hmm
he meant by happiness was kind of what I would argue you could talk about as shalom. But in the Western world, that's been over time has morphed into the idea of just I'm happy. I feel content. I feel and what
back to
concerns me
rugged individualism.
yes, yes. It's
Yeah.
basically the American reality of us has shaped that into am I happy? And what Aristotle meant was, are you happy as a human being? Are you happy as a father? Are you happy as a citizen? Are you happy as a, your job? Are you happy on
hmm
all those levels? And I guess what concerns me is I don't think happiness is the meaning of life. Like, I think it's nice to have, and I don't think it's something that you should not try to cultivate, but I
Yeah.
don't think it's the meaning of life.
I think it's a core quality of life, right?
Yeah,
To be happy in your relationship, happy in your family
yeah,
status, happy, that's a core quality of life. But is it the meaning of no, the meaning of life is 42.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I know the reference.
All right, you know the reference. I don't know if everybody who watches knows the reference, but
Yeah. So if you want to Google it, it'll come up quickly.
it is a pretty common pop culture reference. Yeah.
But I mean, to get back what part of this podcast is about, right? Where we examine stuff through a Christian lens, most
hmm
sometimes even a Wesleyan lens.
Sure.
But the Christian lens will tell you a key component of a good life is sacrificing for other people.
Yes.
And sacrifice often doesn't mean happiness, it means difficulty,
Yeah, for
it
sure.
means strain, it means, um, sometimes anxiety and stress. Like, but it's about are you giving and serving and loving others? In a Christian context, that's much more the meaning of life
Yeah.
than pure happiness is.
It's interesting that you bring it up that way because I think one of the sacrifices that my wife and I have made is that, oh gosh, it's going back 18 plus years ago now,
Yeah,
that we became foster parents,
yeah,
right? And we took in over the course of about 11 years or so, we fostered. We took in over 50 kids.
yeah.
because we could,
Yeah,
because we had the energy, we had the space, and we had the heart to do it.
yeah,
And the thing is, it was, you know, I would love to sit here and say, and every one of those experiences was so wonderful. They were not.
yeah,
We had some, you know, look, without doubt, three of my four kids came through that system.
yeah,
Okay. So they're, you know, the joy of my life is my kids.
yeah,
But there were kids in foster care that, you know, lived in our home for a period of time who were exceptionally challenging. You know, I'm not, I don't do details, and this is
sure,
far too public a forum to talk
sure,
about details. But you know, we had kids who, you know, were abusive toward us, abusive toward other kids in the household. You know, that sort of. We had some really challenging kids in
sure,
those 10, 11 years, and and yet I wouldn't change that. I would do it all over again.
yeah,
You know, so yeah, it's that's the kind of, I think, sacrifice that, you know, we're called for as
yeah.
Christians, right? Is
I
to
mean, to,
kind of lay our own needs and our own self aside and help others.
yeah, I mean, to make another deep cut to another movie that someone might have to Google, we don't follow Buddy Jesus. We don't follow,
Buddy,
yeah, Buddy Christ. We don't follow,
yes, I get that one too.
yeah, we
I
don't
love that
follow.
movie.
Therapeutic deism is a term that I can't remember who used it, but therapeutic deism, the kind of idea that most Christians worship basically a therapeutic God. That
Mm,
God is basically here for me to make me happy, to make
hmm.
me give me peace, to support my life and my needs. And that isn't the God of the Bible. That isn't the
Right.
God of Jesus Christ. We at the center of our faith, the Christian church has chosen to put a cross. The cross is a implement of torture and of difficulty and of struggle. And one of the things that the community over time has shaped into it is stuff like, offer up your sacrifices to Christ's sacrifice and unify it with Christ's sacrifice. So if that's part of our tradition, and it is, then Christians can never be comfortable with the idea that the meaning of life can simply be stated as happiness.
Yeah, yeah. So so true. So true. Um, what else do we want to say about this? Um,
I
you you talked about some of the quotes. Let's be unhappy together.
Yeah, yeah. I did like the idea, and I do find that I didn't find this luckily around my the time I was divorcing, but I have found it at different points in my life. The fact that sometimes people can be upset that you're doing well. That they can be like frustrated or jealous that something's going well in your life. Maybe they
Mhm.
want it in their own life, and I'm not going to say I'm not blame. I haven't done this myself, but that's an interesting human capacity, our capacity to be upset that other people are happy, or be upset because other people's lives are going well.
I have said this any number of times that there are some people who just thrive on the misery of others.
Yeah.
Um, and
He calls them the vampire in this movie.
yeah,
The
vampires.
reversible
That's right.
vampire.
That's it in one of his stand-up bits. Um, and you know, that's a sad commentary on just human nature.
Yeah.
That there really are people like this who just they don't want to see others succeed, and they cannot celebrate if others succeed.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
This
it's sad.
this movie in an interesting way reminded me that I feel like one of the great risks and dangers to the church, especially in America, is individualism. You know, this hyper ideal of something's wrong if I'm not happy, and I've got to find a way to undermine someone else's happiness. You know, Like,
Look, don't we? And I touched on a little on this last week when Kate was on with us, but I mean, we see that in sort of the competitive nature between clergy and how
yeah,
there are some clergy. Let's be honest, there are some clergy, even within our own conference,
yeah,
among our own circles, who would sabotage the ministry of another
yeah,
just because that other person's doing well.
yeah.
You know, and again,
Or
this is a
or
sad
badmouth or
commentary on human
complain,
nature.
other clergy, another clergy person because they're doing well and they're upset about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I can disagree with how another clergy person functions. I can disagree with their ministry or their theology or whatever it is, but it's a whole different thing to try to undermine them,
Yeah,
badmouth them to the point where, other people just are turned away. I mean, unless somebody's just preaching pure heresy or something,
yeah,
which again, that kind of comes down to interpretation at times.
yeah,
Uh, so let's be honest on that one. But um, yeah, again, I think just a sad commentary on human nature. Even friends, if you haven't heard me say it before, clergy ain't perfect.
yeah.
We are
We're two perfect examples.
two perfect examples of imperfection.
That's right.
Um, we're trying to I often say to people that, they look at me like, well, what does the Bible say about this? Well, I'll have to look it up. Well,
Yeah,
don't you know? Look, I took some classes. I have a degree, but it doesn't mean that I can, I'm not the dude from Book of Eli. I can't recite the whole Bible to you. You know,
yeah. We we
so
probably we probably both been in rooms where someone is complaining about someone who got chosen as this district superintendent, and they should have been chosen as a district
mhm.
superintendent, or they haven't served long enough, or they don't do this right or that right, and you're thinking to yourself, why are you doing this in front of other clergy people? Why are you doing this out loud? Like,
I called out a colleague of ours once when we were among others,
yeah,
and this person was bad mouthing someone, and they were in the process. They were not yet ordained,
mm,
and they were bad mouthing someone in the company of others. And I literally I turned to him and I said, I can't even. I will not say what I said to that person
yeah,
on here because it was not the cleanest of language.
yeah,
But I basically told him like, shut it down, man. You are you're not in the right place to be saying that. You're going to get in trouble,
yeah,
you know. But this is where we are. We are all broken vessels,
yes.
and we're doing the best that we can, and we got to leave it right there as
That's
we think about what we're gonna. The bottom line on is this thing on?
right. Yeah,
Didn't hate it. It was okay.
yeah. It
Just
wasn't the
understand
greatest
it's
movie.
not what it appears to be by the trailer or the summary.
Yeah,
Go into it knowing that it's more of a romantic comedy. It
yeah,
does have some funny bits. I would say it's probably not for your kids,
no.
but it's okay. For next week, I'm off, right?
Mhm.
So I've been thinking about rewatching a film that I saw a long time ago, came out in 2000.
Okay,
Podcaster that I listen to a lot has been talking about this movie recently, and it really fits into this year,
okay,
even though it's a 26-year-old film, in that it's about the Revolutionary War.
okay,
So why don't we watch The Patriot,
okay,
uh, Mel Gibson film? It's on, I think it's on Prime as a rental.
okay.
So I just because the one fellow that I listen to has been talking about it all the time. And I'm like, 250th anniversary of the country. Maybe it's a good time to do some
Sure.
films like that. We'll see.
Okay.
See how folks feel about it. I know like I said, I've seen it. long time ago. Um, Probably haven't seen it in 15 or 20 years. So uh, let's see how it holds up.
Okay.
Other than that, friends, next week we will watch The Patriot, talk about The Patriot. Until next Friday, keep on finding God in the dark. Take care and God bless. Bye. Thanks again for watching the Finding God in the Dark podcast, friends. If you've made it here all the way to the end of the video, then obviously you find something that we're doing to be educational or informative, something valuable in this podcast. So we want to invite you to go ahead and share this with your friends, hit the like button, follow us for more of this. We publish every week at 10 a.m. on Friday mornings on YouTube. Shortly thereafter, you'll find us somewhere on Facebook. Until next Friday, keep on finding God in the dark. Thanks for watching. Bye now.